Hello, everybody. Welcome back once more. Look who it is.
I'm back.
She's stuck here. She's never leaving
I love
HQ.
form checks.
All right. It's Friday. It's Form Check Friday. And this week, just like last week, Form Check Friday is brought to you by our friends over at Bells of Steel. Now, Bells of Steel makes a bunch of great equipment that is perfect for home gym owners and commercial gym owners alike. We use a lot of their equipment. We have it in a lot of our videos. Their prices are great. Their stuff's well built. Their customer service is fantastic. Danny used to work for Bells of Steel. I mentioned this last time.
Yeah.
Do you have a different new anecdote about it?
No, they make great equipment.
Okay. And they also, I think, recently came out with some really new iterations of cardio equipment. Dylan was saying they have a manual treadmill that looks really cool. It's got a nice wood paneling, wood grain kind of thing going on it. So if you're interested in checking out any of the awesome stuff at Bells of Steel, it supports the channel. They support the channel. They're a local Calgary-based company. So click the link in the description box below. Go over there, check them out. Even if you're not going to buy anything, just click the link and go over there and just like look around, see what they're about. Maybe something catches your eye. Maybe you just get yourself a little kettlebell to fling around at home or something. Who knows? I don't know. Anything's better than nothing, right? Also, before we get into things here, we're really excited to announce that the CBB 3-year app anniversary is going on right now. So we're giving a real sick deal on the app membership using the code CBB3year. Should be on the screen somewhere. Dylan, I'm trusting you. And that's going to get you a sick deal on there. We're doing a big giveaway on the Instagram, so go check that out. And we're going to be doing a contest within the app for app members where we're giving away some Bells of Steel and Inner Strength equipment. Both fantastic Canadian-based companies for strength athletes by strength athletes.
Woo.
They're good people and we like working with them. So check both of them out. Check out the Calgary Barbell app. We got apparel coming out too.
Oh my god.
I think right now. When's it coming out, Dylan? We got so much going on right now. We got apparel going on. We got the app sale. Bells of Steel is cool and they sponsor Form Check Friday now. So anyways, thanks to listening to my spiel. Let's get into form checking. All right, starting with number 1, we got Andrew doing some squats. Oh, I'm in the wrong view here.
Was that a squat suit?
I think that was the squat suit.
It looked like a deadlift suit actually.
I think that was a suit of some kind.
Looks like my deadlift suit.
Let's take a closer look.
Looks like my Velocity.
Yeah, that's definitely a suit. What do we got here? I'm gonna read the email from Andrew.
I would.
So,
Love a
equipped
red
sub junior.
Woo.
First day after implementing a more exaggerated hip movement when starting the squat. So I'm guessing like a pre-hinge kind of thing. Form breakdown starting with bottom position in the second and upper back tightness and some hip movement on the 3rd rep.
Woo.
So far my squat seems to be benefiting greatly with the increase in hip movement. My body is responding better to it. All right, so.
Like that first rep, yo.
Yeah. I don't think I actually saw it. I was reading the email.
Yeah, you were. It was real nice.
All right, let's see. So looking super locked in there. Extra knee lock, love that. We're clearly doing the IPF. Yeah, first rep was money.
Yeah. Great speed into the hole. Like, I think it's really easy to get kind of really tempo the weight down in the equipped squat, but just looking really confident here, which I like.
Yeah. So I think one of the things I'm seeing here is that speed into the hole can be a bit of a double-edged sword, because I think that's part of why we get a little
Pulled forward.
Out of position on reps 2 and 3 here. The other thing I think is you go into a more exaggerated extension as you sit into the 2nd rep, whereas in the first one I think you keep your brace together a little better. You allow yourself to tilt more kind of as a whole. Right? We still do get a little bit of that hip extension, but not quite as much. And in the second one, yeah, just as we hit the bottom, because we're trying to stay extended, we get a little bit pulled forward. And then in the 3rd one, I think it happens again, but we also just get a little looser. And you can see even his toes come up on this final rep here. That was rep 2, but this last one, Yeah, just weight kind of shifting around on you. So I think with the exaggerated hip movement, one of the big things for me when I was still using that and like doing a bit of a pre-hinge was that, and I think I got this from like second or third hand from Steve Denovi or something, but when you do the pre-hinge, make sure that you're setting your balance after you set your hips. Because if you set your balance, then you hinge your hips back, you're changing your center of gravity, right? You're gonna get out of whack, you're gonna get out of line, and then you're gonna go to dip, or you're gonna go to sit down into the squat, and you're gonna be probably too far back. And a lot of the times, the reason we fall forward is because we're too far back, right? We have to have a balance between that sort of forwards and backwards, especially in the feet, right? Heel and ball of the foot. If we're too far back as we hit the hole, that's when we're going to be popping forward. So if you're going to use that hinge and that sort of exaggerated hips back, make sure that as you're sitting back, you're keeping good toe and heel pressure so that we can maintain it, you know, cleanly and smoothly throughout. Anything else you see in there, Danny? What do you think?
I think that covers most of it. I almost want to say like reps 2 and 3, it looks like we're maybe losing just a little bit of like the ribs down position. So right as soon as you extend your hips back, the ribs don't move.
There's a lot more like
with the hips, yeah.
reaching
So
up.
we see the rib cage flare just ever so slightly. And when you're in equipment, when you're under the loads that you will be in equipped squatting, I think the brace is just, especially squat, like so important. So making sure that's consistent. One cue that I really like is like exhaling first and then contracting from that exhale. So when you exhale air, you're gonna feel like your deep core muscles tighten up.
Yeah.
And once you feel that, now you brace into that position, and that's gonna force you to expand against your belt rather than just pushing like air forward. And I think for me, especially in the equipped squat, that's been like a big game changer in being able to like keep my position in the hole of the squat, especially when you are kind of attacking the hole with a little bit more speed.
Yeah, you really can't afford to have any like lapse in tightness when you're gonna hit the hole that hard. You have to really make sure that at that moment where you're changing direction, everything is tight as hell. The other thing I'm seeing here is it's kind of hard to see on some of these reps, but this lifter is looking up really hard as they sit down into the bottom. And I think maybe even more so like head back and up on reps 2 and 3, like really trying to like lead with the head. And I would almost say like pulling your head back, not necessarily gonna run counter to like any of the bracing stuff we're talking about, but if you're looking up like that, I think like if we're tending our neck and upper back into extension, then everything's just gonna kind of follow suit. So what I would do is I would probably look like out here-ish, just so that you can, again, like keep your head in line with your trunk as you go through, instead of trying to be looking up where we're losing that back position now. Also just stoked to see like spotters in a suit here. I couldn't tell if the side spotter was in a suit as well.
Yeah, this is sick.
Looks like it.
2 weeks in a row equipped lifting.
Yeah.
We're
Dope.
back.
Dope.
World Games, that's why.
We're so back. All right, our next lifter is Corey. Corey's doing some bench. Let's take a look, Corey. I also noticed that people are writing a lot more context about their lift their lifting. And that makes me really happy, because there's been a few times where it's like, they just send in a video with like no title, no description, no nothing. And it's like, I'm having a hard time knowing like what to approach you with here. Like, was this a max attempt? Are we injured? You know, like, anyways.
We love
Corey
feedback.
says, hello, B. Rice and Dill Lawn, L-A-W-N. Hi, Dylan, from Corey. He says hi. So training about 5 years, powerlifting for 3 years now, self-coached. Bench has always been a struggle. Tends to do well with submax weights, but heavier weights, he feels like his leg drive, eccentric bar path, and timing are all a little bit off. So at the end of 2020, he broke his left arm, and ever since it's a little bit shorter. Left elbow tends to flare more, particularly on the descent. Want to know if technique or programming is the big thing holding me back, or if I just need to get more stronger and more jacked. Thanks for the help. Again, more stronger, more jacked is never a bad thing.
I was gonna say the same thing. Can't go wrong there.
Let's take a look at this. It's just a single.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
Okay. It's funny you mentioned the arm length discrepancy from having broken your arm, because that's actually something Seth deals with. And as a result of that, he actually grips
Slightly
offset.
Yeah.
Right? He grips with, I think, ring finger on one side and and middle finger on the other side. So I don't know, maybe that's something to try. I don't know if that's going to be the ticket, right? Like if your limb length discrepancy is the thing, but just anecdotally, that's something that somebody else who had the exact same or a very similar kind of thing going on, that's how they, try to manage it. But what else are you seeing here, Danny? What do you think?
Pretty locked in a position here. One thing I think that we could be trying to do is just like expanding the chest a little bit more. I feel like we're really expanded through like the belly brace.
Right.
But I feel like we could get more air into the chest, push the chest up more towards the bar.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like, bottom of the ribs is really pushing towards the bar, which is cool. You have like this great position here, but I do think that getting the chest up a little bit higher is going to put you into a better position for like your scapula. You're going to be more retracted.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead to more shoulder stability, which could be beneficial to the arm discrepancy that you experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good catch actually, because it does look like we're kind of flat in the upper back, and then we got a lot of extension here. And I mean, if you take a look at the size of the vertebra and like the structure of your upper back, like you're not going to get a whole lot of extension there, but even just a little bit more extension in the upper back.
Well, even just the act of cueing that is going to set your shoulders way different, right?
Yeah.
Which is important for the stability aspect.
Exactly. And like trying to pull the chest up to meet the bar, trying to pull the shoulder blades down more. Because another thing I notice here is that right as you get in towards the chest and your touch, if we just watch this shoulder right about there, it starts to elevate, starts to start creeping up. We can see it creeping up and up and up. And just seeing that like tiniest little bit of like elevation, which means, the shoulder blade is kind of creeping up your back as opposed to staying wedged down into depression, which again is going to mean that your kind of elbows, you're coming out and we're more in line than having that like nice slight tuck. So then when we come off the chest and the elbow comes back as it naturally does, on this side, we're pretty much straight underneath it, but it does look like we almost get out into that sort of like no-go zone where we're too out of position in the shoulder blades. We can't finish with the pecs and the delts. What do you think of the leg drive and like foot position and stuff? Because that was one of the things Corey mentioned here was the eccentric bar path, timing, and leg drive are things that specifically kind of he has a hard time with.
I mean, it doesn't look overly problematic. I'd say maybe we can see as the weight's coming down towards your chest, there's a bit of a shift of your body weight towards your knees, which usually indicates to me that we're not like actively pressing back.
Yeah.
It's pretty nitpicky though. Like I think you're pretty locked into position there.
Yeah.
And I like where the knee placement is.
Yeah.
Foot position looks like it's okay. Maybe heels are slightly elevated. Depends on the shoe.
Yeah, it's tough to say down there.
Tough to say from here, but
yeah, and then I mean the other thing I would look at is obviously programming,
Yeah, I was gonna say, what kind of variations do you think would be beneficial to just keeping that position a bit better?
I think it's, especially given that he mentions the eccentric, in particular, and timing.
Yeah.
I'd say something like maybe a 3-2-0 tempo with a nice light touch, like really focusing in on how is everything being positioned as we descend, spending some time on the chest, like pushing the chest up into the bar and then pressing, you know what I mean? Like slowing down the first part of the lift and really focusing in on, where is each joint in space during each, count of a nice slow eccentric.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because as soon as you lose position in a tempo bench press, you feel it.
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
Yeah. And then, I mean, obvious things like, frequency, intensity, that kind of stuff, which is a lot harder to kind of guess at without a whole lot of knowing what's going on. But
I feel like in my experience, most people self-programming could bench more. I feel a lot of the time people gravitate towards like a bodybuilder, like kind of bro split. Like
benching maybe once, maybe twice a week.
Which I don't necessarily think gives us enough practice. So it might be worthwhile to add some like light work in. But
yeah, I would agree. I think a lot of people, myself included, like when I first got into powerlifting, I was running 5-3-1, and there was one bench day a week, and it was like, man, I'm 160 pounds. I'm like 5'10". I played soccer my whole life. I have no upper body strength or awareness. Benching 1 time a week did not do it for me.
You don't even remember what you did by the next session.
Like, I ran 5-3-1 for like 3 full like cycles through, and I put 100 pounds on my squat, 100 pounds on my deadlift, and 5 pounds on my bench. So, I mean, that's kind of the story of my life with my lifting career anyways. But yeah, I definitely think most people can get away with benching a little bit more than maybe convention would suggest. Although there's a lot more information out there now about good programming and stuff. So
very true.
It's harder to kind of assume people are making those same mistakes. All right, Kimberly. Been powerlifting for just over 1 year, and she's a competitor. Squat and bench are coming along better, but on deadlift, my hips always shoot up and cause me to lose position and hitch at the end. I think it could be caused by my back, which tends to be very bent whenever I brace, but I'm not sure if this is the issue. Any and all advice is appreciated. So it looks like we got a decently high rep set here to kind of look through and figure out. Some reps looking better than others, even towards the end there. So definitely a discrepancy in hip height, hey? Doesn't seem like we're setting the hips at the same height rep to rep. There's somewhere they're a lot higher, somewhere we're getting a little more or a little less extension in the back. Wait, this just repeated a few times and it's only a double? Or what?
That's high reps for us. We're powerlifters.
No, I take it back. I thought it was like 6. It's definitely a double. A lot of reps there to take a look at. Got to count to 2. What do you think, Danny?
I think I would try to coach a bit more hinge into this position. So just trying.
What do you mean by that?
Just trying to get you to cue yourself to push your hips like back towards the wall rather than trying to pull your hips towards the bar to start the movement. I think you're really trying to tuck your hips towards the bar, which a lot of people do to try and get more extension. But oftentimes that doesn't really allow us the sufficient start position off the floor. And we can see that when you do pull your hips towards the bar, you also create some like horizontal displacement of the bar. You kick it forward a little bit, and
very subtle, but you can see it right off the floor there.
And on like a third attempt, especially sumo, that's gonna make or break whether you can lock that out or not.
For sure.
So I like to keep people to try and imagine that they're trying to push their hips back as far as they can to the wall behind them, kind of film from the side, and maybe even start from like the top of the deadlift and slowly lower it to the ground. See where your hips end up in that hinge position, and usually that's a great place to like kind of start building that more hinged sumo pull. Yeah,
a lot of really great advice there. I think one of the things that's really telling is this: before you actually get set on the bar, right? We're sitting into this position, and I'm making some assumptions here, but I feel like this is the position you're trying to achieve with like where you're starting the deadlift, right?
Yeah.
And one of the very classic things that we see, and I think has been really like over cued and over idealized in the sumo deadlift over the years, is this like really excessive abduction of the, you know, the upper limb of the leg. We're really trying to push knees out like really, really far here. And a lot of the times that really does coincide with that kind of excessive flexion, you know, the pelvis getting kind of like tucked and dumped underneath like that. So I think, you know, we try to push the knees out like that, but then the knees are like, no, I got to come into here to generate any force, right?
Yeah.
So I would try more often and more frequently to start with your knees in a position like this, and then like Danny said, you know, try to find the back wall with your hips, and you know, the tip to do like an eccentric, and just sort of see where you lower it to. And I think, you know, piggybacking off of that a little bit, maybe more of a top-down setup where you're kind of setting your brace and your trunk position and then going down to approach the bar and set your grip. Now with hook grip, depending on how quickly you can set your hook, like that would never work for me because it takes me about 46 seconds, I think, to set both my thumbs in hook grip. But if you're a lifter who can just kind of grab and go with their hook grip, then it's a lot more likely that you're able to kind of set that brace, you know, be really intentional with your positioning as you're going down to approach the bar, losing minimal position from where you initially try to set it, and then grab the bar and pull, right? As opposed to being on the bar, setting the grip first, and then having to try to set your body once you have the bar in your hands.
Yeah, I might even just try to not externally rotate the feet quite so much.
Like toe in a little?
Yeah, toe in just a small bit, like nothing drastic, but that will just kind of get you out of the habit of forcing so much external rotation right in the beginning.
Yeah, because we can definitely see a discrepancy as she comes off the floor in terms of like the angle of the upper limb of her leg and how toed out she is.
Yeah.
Right? We're more toed out than the hips allow for in external rotation. And generally speaking, I mean, it's not a hard rule, but generally speaking, we kind of want the same angle, you know, leg, shin, foot. Kind of just creates a really stable basic position, easy balance, and all that kind of good stuff. And yeah, I think you can, like, you're clearly, you have a strong back, right,
Yeah.
to be able to lock these out. So I think you can probably afford like this flexion here. It's this flexion here and the position of your pelvis that I think are really inhibiting the lockout. So if you can get those like a little more adjusted, a little more, you know, kind of tweaked, I think you're going to be in a great position to have more consistency in your pulls.
And I think sometimes too, like taking care of like inefficiencies like that can really help us push more work in our training. So like I know specifically I have one lifter that actually used to deadlift fairly similar to this, but because her lower back was always so pumped out from
having to like pull
position,
through the top end.
yeah, it was hard to push a lot more deadlift volume for her. But once we figured out her stance and got her hips a bit higher, now she's like, oh, I can push all this deadlift volume all of a sudden. So, which is nice.
Generally speaking, more volume is more adaptation, right? Yeah. All right. We got Robert. And he's squatting. Looking for general advice on what I can improve on. 4 weeks out from my first powerlifting competition with WRPF, competing at 82.5, currently 83 kilos. Thank you. All right. Well, first piece of advice, don't change anything 4 weeks out.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like, should we review this one?
Yeah, I mean, we'll give them. I think the thing is to sort of like preface it and be like, if we offer you suggestions on changing things, save it for after the meet. You know, like screen record this and file it away somewhere,
Yeah.
and then come back and watch it after you've competed. So I think a pretty classic thing with somebody who's a little newer to squatting, right? And apologies if that's, you know, an incorrect assumption, but you said you're doing your first meet, so I'm assuming we have, you know, a limited amount of experience. Really commonly, people in the squat, they want to squat just by pushing their knees forward, right? We have this idea that like we really don't want to allow any of this. So we push the knees forward, and you're actually able to get
That's really nice.
maybe full depth. Like
Are you an ollie lifter?
at least very close to full depth, without like any hinge at all. The issue comes about on rep 2, where I think we run into a little bit more of an issue with depth, yeah. And the knees forward is gonna put us pretty far on the front of our foot. And then we're gonna pop out of the bottom, and this bar is gonna kind of pop forward on you. You're gonna have to fight to make sure that we're not getting pulled even further forward by that momentum of the bar when we got that little bit of sticking point. So after your competition, I want you to try to work on, number one, I think we could widen up a little bit. I think we can get a little bit wider in the stance. And number two, I want you to work on trying to incorporate what's called a hip hinge into your lift. And all that means is that we keep this beautiful, wonderful, nice, neutral torso, and we just tilt it a little bit as you sit down, right? So allow yourself to push your hips back, putting a little bit more weight on the heels. And then once you have this kind of a hip position, or a torso position rather, then just sit straight down, right? If we can incorporate a little bit of sitting back into this squat, like you're there. The fact that you can get that much depth without even hinging at the hips is actually quite impressive.
Yeah.
And speaks to your leg strength. You know what I mean? Like you've got the ability to push through some weight. Now, if you can incorporate your posterior chain, your upper back, lower back, hips, hamstrings a little more, you're laughing. You're gonna make gains for days, weeks, years, months. I don't know, what's the longest? Months?
Yeah. Would you also suggest maybe trying to get a more low bar position just in general? I mean, I think we can assume his mobility is pretty good.
Pretty good.
So it might be beneficial that if you're going to incorporate that more hinge position, like can we get the bar a little bit lower? Can we utilize the shelf a bit more? Because you are getting a little bit pulled forward, especially on rep 2 and 3. And I do think that would be less if the bar was placed a little bit lower on your back as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and definitely getting more into like optimizations and stuff. You know, I think, a lot of the times with newer lifters, I'm kind of just like, well, let's just fix like the basics or whatever. But I actually like, you know, if we want to start thinking about next steps now, it's like, okay, well, we got the hinge in there because honestly, judging by your squat, it's gonna be a pretty easy fix. You seem like a pretty like physically literate person. You know, you kind of just figured out squatting and you're good at it. You know what I mean? A little bit of tweaking, and I think it's gonna be really good. So why not layer something else on top and say, hey, you know, if we got that bar like a tiny little bit lower down the back, then okay, now we're starting to like min-max some stuff. We're starting to like push a little bit more into, you know, trying to drive performance and get the extra little bit out of there, which I think is good and smart.
And after competition is a good time to play around with that because you're going to be kind of transitioning into different phase of training coming off the peak. So you might do like, hey, let's do one true low bar movement and then one high bar comp, whatever mid bar this is, and play around with that. See if you like it for a training cycle, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, after a meet, ideally, you're going to be training with a little less intensity, although you never know. So yeah, definitely a great time to try some stuff out. So yeah, let us know how the meet goes. Best of luck, and don't change anything until after it's done.
Please.
All right, up next we have Sebastian. Now, the first thing I noticed when Sebastian sent this in is that I think I have a client who competed in this meet on the weekend. Shout outs to Arvid. Junior Nats last weekend. That's the one. All right. So this video is his second deadlift of 260 and third deadlift at 275 from Junior Nats. Third got red lighted at lockout, mostly shoulders, upper body, but also soft knees. He says he's been struggling with his deadlift lockout for a long time, would appreciate some help with it. He's gained about 10 kilos. I'm assuming he means body weight. Since his first competition in January 2023, doesn't feel like his angles or leverages have changed that much for the worse, but his lockout has always been the problem. So he's moving up to 120. He's 192 centimeters, which is, I think that's pretty tall. Because I think I'm like 170 or 167, and I'm like 5'10". Dylan, do you know centimeters at all for height? No. Okay. Anyways,
we're Canadian.
Anyways, assuming this guy's pretty tall, assuming Sebastian's pretty tall here. So he's also said he's considering trying out conventional.
No. So I think one thing that always comes with trying to oversell the lockout is the knees going soft, right? So as soon as we start trying to pull the shoulders back a ton to really try and sell that lockout, we end up seeing the knees kind of come forward, and then we kind of get stuck there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the refs could probably see that the grip was starting to go there too on that one, right? I think we did get it, but just barely, and probably not long enough to get the down command and for the refs to be satisfied. Looks like we're gripping on, are we gripping on the smooth?
Yeah, I felt that the grip looked a bit off as well.
So yeah, I mean,
it's too narrow.
Grip looks quite narrow, so I think widening that up.
Then your shoulders can't like come through, right?
Exactly. Widening that up, I think, is going to let you get a little more out of your upper back, and I also think we could just do more in terms of pulling the upper back through. I think that once we get to the side view, which I love that they did this, great stream, Swedish Junior Nationals. I just like, we're not really making any effort to kind of pull the lats in, right? We're looking straight down. We're really far forward with the shoulders. And then we come up off the floor, we lose even a little bit more out of the shoulders, and now we've got, you know, a lot of hip extension to go through. On your second attempt here, you know, you're able to get through it just fine. But if we look at how we come off the floor in your third attempt, we kind of don't see as much of it, but we're super far forward in the shoulders.
Yeah.
So what I would do is, if we can go back to this one. So you set such good tension in your lower body, just get some tension in your upper body. And it's hard to say whether or not the shoulders are really far forward because we're gripping on the smooth and we're gripping really narrow. I think either way, even if you're completely opposed to changing your grip at all, I still think you could probably pull your shoulders down and kind of like open the chest just a little bit to get a bit better tightness through the upper and mid back. And yeah, I mean, ideally, I would probably recommend that we grip a little wider.
Yeah, not a lot.
'Cause,
Like
like
one finger width.
Grip is like, I can see it from the side even. The grip is going on you.
Yeah.
And if we're gripping on the smooth and we're losing our grip, why? You know, I don't think it's doing you any favors to be gripping on the smooth.
And then like I kind of understand why like people want to grip on the smooth because they want to like shorten that range of motion, but then you're also sitting back into the deadlift so much here that you're actually creating a longer kind of range of motion for yourself. So you could be locking out probably a little bit earlier on the quad had we not have to like lean back so far.
Yeah, especially if we're having grip issues. So, I mean, those would be the things that I would point out and recommend. Like like I said, your lower body is like exceptional. Like it's dialed. It's just that shoulder position. And I think if you can generate that little bit more tightness and kind of tie your shoulders into your brace more, you're going to be laughing.
And sometimes just directing your gaze too can really help with how you set your shoulders. So if you're approaching the bar, like head down, neck down, and you're always finding that you're just too flexed to set your shoulders, it might be beneficial to just kind of look at the ref's feet or something.
Yeah, like if you took your head from here to here and just looked like out there, that might even on its own be enough to kind of button things up and get that little tiny bit of thoracic extension and that little tiny bit of shoulder depression and all that good stuff to get you just locked and dialed in. Because yeah, I mean that third, it's a bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Like it's 275. You know, that's a big milestone.
It's a gym PR.
It was a real narrow miss. You know what I mean? Like that could have gone either way. Maybe a 2-1 decision. It was 3 reds, but I mean, could have been a 2-1 decision, I think. Yeah. So feel for you, and hopefully, you know, you can utilize some of that advice and pull 305 next time.
Yeah, and I mean, too, like watching that third one over and over again, like, are the refs waiting to give the down command because you're still going back? You know, like, because there was a point where I'm like, I think I would have given the down command by now, but you're just still moving, your shoulders are still settling.
Wrong rep, but.
Right, like there. And
like there?
Yeah.
Right? But then there's all this extra trying to pull back. And you can see like the torso angle changed the whole time. So yeah, I think a lot of the times the refs are going to be looking for that like distinct stopping point of like, there's no more movement.
Yeah.
Okay, let's check. We're locked, good, down, you know? Whereas it's like, if he's still moving, oh, maybe his shoulders aren't locked all the way. Maybe he's still trying to get his shoulders through. Maybe his knees aren't locked or his hips aren't finished or whatever, you know? So the other thing with setting a little bit more tension in your shoulders is, you know, that way once your hips are locked, you're not going to have to do extra to pull your shoulders through. You're going to be able to sell locked shoulders without, you know, all that.
Sell it. They'll just be locked.
Like, you're going to be able to lock here because your shoulders will be kind of slotted down and back just the tiniest little bit, and this will be locked out, right? As opposed to having to go through all that extra little bit there. And when you have, you know, 110% or 105% or whatever on there, like that amount of range of motion can really matter. So
what do we think about him switching to conventional?
Don't do it, man. It's just not worth it.
Yeah. I mean, some people are really good at both, but it looks like you got a good pulse, so I'd stick with it.
Also, use it as a training tool. Like, the worst that's going to happen is it's probably going to make the worst that's going to happen is you're going to be good at it and you're going to switch to it.
No bias here.
But in actuality, you know, like the downside of integrating some conventional, and I would be very hesitant to just totally switch and be like, no more sumo, only conventional. Because then if conventional sucks and feels bad, which it does, and or like, you know, doesn't go well, it doesn't train well, you know, you run into issues with it, then it's going to take you a while to kind of claw that sumo competency back. What I would do is I would run them concurrently, and maybe you split the training volume or something like that, but keep some sumo in there so you can remain, you know, strong and skillful with it, and try implementing some sumo just as, you know, something to play with and something to try out, something to use. I think that's a much better strategy so that you can, you know, maintain it.
I might even do like a stiff leg deadlift to try and just learn to really like pack the lats and
get a little
orientate the upper back a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's gonna be less forgiving if you don't do that well. So that could be like a good way to kind of get into a little bit more of that conventional pattern, but more transferable to the actual sumo if you decide to stick with sumo, which we hope you do, because 275 is sick.
Yeah.
But
cool. Other than that, thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to check out the Calgary Barbell 3-year anniversary sale.
Woo.
CalgaryBarbell.com. Also,
Carol.
Danny coaches at Calgary Barbell. She does nutrition coaching. She does powerlifting coaching. And if you want to be coached by Danny, you can just send an application in at CalgaryBarbell.com.
I'm kind of waiting for hula hooping form checks, but it hasn't come yet.
Well, be careful what you wish for. All right, we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.